Well, hello again, everybody. This is John Norris at Trading Perspectives. As always, we have our very good friend, Sam Clement. Sam, say hello.
Hey, John, how are you?
I'm doing very well today. Thank you for asking. The sky is a beautiful blue here in central Alabama as I talk. I've been in quarantine thanks to my daughter coming home from college with COVID-19. I've been at the house for a week and a half. I don't really know the protocol. Am I supposed to go out? Am I not supposed to go out? So I'm kind of doing neither. I'm kind of like sort of in and out and all that stuff. But even so, that's protocol that we have elected to enforce upon ourselves at Oakworth Capital Bank. We're going to follow CDC guidelines. However, there are some states out there, Sam, as you well know, that are actually putting restrictions, legal restrictions on their citizenry about how they can move about and who they can see and how they can conduct business. Most notably, really, in my opinion, is New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, for all intents and purposes, putting out an edict mandating what Thanksgiving will look like legally. Sam, what do you think about a politician
Yeah,
doing that?
well, that Thanksgiving's kind of been the big example of that lately. They're saying, whether it's you can't have more than 7 people or you can't have people outside your household. We're seeing several states really issue that. And, I don't know how many people's plans that's going to change. I mean, I think you're seeing the people who are real concerned and don't want to meet with people. We're probably going to do that no matter what Andrew Cuomo said, or no matter what Newsom said, or Kate Brown, I think is her name in Oregon. But the people who are going to meet with their family and don't really care what they say are probably still going to do that. So, and you're not seeing really any enforcement of it either. So it kind of brings up the question: what's the point of it?
Well, you bring up a very good point because, first off, there have been some pushback in New York from some of the upstate sheriff's departments who have said that they don't have the manpower to enforce this executive order, and nor do they have the inclination to enforce it. Well, one of the people, I believe it might have been in
Yeah,
Washington County or Erie County, one of those up there, said that, listen, no, it's Fulton County actually said, listen, I've got a law degree. I mean, I'm not sure what if this is even enforceable, and then what am I going to do with my limited
yeah,
resources? Going to go in and make sure that there are no more than 10 turkey eaters in a house? Because I've got other things I've got to do. So what does it mean when people like Cuomo, and to a lesser degree Newsom, who has put out very strict guidelines but has yet to make it illegal, but people like Cuomo, they are making it illegal to get together, from what I understand of his executive order. And then the sheriffs are saying, we're just simply not going to enforce it. Sam, you've heard me talk plenty of times about the 3 key things that you need to have in order to have a functioning economy. First among those is adherence to the rule of law, and that the rule of law cannot be capricious. It
yeah,
has to be evenly
yeah.
enforced. So what do we have when we have politicians being, in some estimations, relatively capricious in what they're doing, and then having their enforcement agency saying, we're simply not going to do it?
Yeah, the enforcement agencies, I think it's more so than the manpower. I think that's their nice way of saying, we're not going to do this. We're not going to go in and, split people up on Thanksgiving Day because they have too many people in their group. I mean, it's just kind of bonkers to me.
Well,
It really kind of continues to blow my mind. And I think the fear is that it starts to question what the rule of law is. And,
yeah.
if a governing body is throwing out things that they can't enforce and nobody's going to enforce, well, does that kind of question the rule of law? I mean, it brings, when we talked previously about court packing and
Yeah.
what that means, and if you start to pack the court one way and the next president starts to pack the court the other way, it just becomes a political body that people no longer respect as the rule of law. And I think that's what you see when these states start to throw things out that they can't legally enforce. I don't even think they know. I don't even think they can enforce it. I think it's just window dressing is what it is to me, or at least in my opinion. So I think the impact of it is more so bothersome for down the road, and what that means for maybe their power, or rule of law, or these mandates, or whatever we want to call it that they're putting into place. People may just start not listening to them.
Well, I mean, I think you're hitting on a couple of different nails on the head there. First off, if these politicians, if these executives in the executive offices, in the executive branch, if they just start throwing stuff out willy nilly, one, like you said, we're not going to pay any attention to it. And then two, if we do pay attention to it, then what happens all of a sudden? They just keep on throwing stuff out there. So
Yeah.
either way, I don't see that we're in a win-win situation when you have elected officials and governors and mayors of big cities mandating what you should do in a very, in my estimation, un-American way. Lori
Yeah.
Lightfoot putting restrictions on Thanksgiving. Cuomo, Newsom essentially shutting down 85% of the state. I mean, ruining economies and people's lives in the process. And yet we haven't really seen terribly many people push back on this, which is so amazing to me. I can't imagine what would happen in a state like Alabama or even in a state like Texas or the Carolinas or some such place if the governors in those states try to enact the same level of restrictions that Whitmer, Murphy, Cuomo, Pritzker, and Newsom are trying to enforce.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be bedlam in Alabama. And I'm not holding us out there as anything more than what we are. I mean, we're the flyover. I mean, I get it. We're way down here, out of everyone's mind, with the exception of every other year and college football Saturdays. But I mean, can you imagine that down here in the deep South? I mean, someone trying to do that. I mean, we wouldn't enforce it.
Yeah.
And then we get back to the rule of law. I mean, what good is the rule of law if it's capricious one and we're not enforcing it?
Exactly. And I think that's the bigger concern than just, how ridiculous some of these shutdowns and enforcements or edicts or mandates or whatever we call it are, is that it starts to just, crumble away the power that these people have, or the respect that people have for, government mandates. If they start to just throw things out like this that nobody, even the person trying to enforce it, believes in or believes can be enforced.
Well, and another thing, what's so frustrating about some of these people that have been the most restrictive, and this I'm not trying to go off on political rant here. It's just you take a look at someone like a Gavin Newsom, who is, with his restrictions and purple tears and what have you, really wrecking the economic lives of a lot of people. In the meantime, he goes up to Napa Valley and goes to the French Laundry and has a nice cozy dinner for 12. Celebrate the
Yeah.
50th birthday for one of his friends, and comes back and admits he should have set a better example. Or Lori Lightfoot's out there in the streets, damn near having a fiesta, a party, soiree, whatever you want to call it, out there in the street, yelling into a megaphone. And then the next day or 2 days later, she's saying you got to lock it down on Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
So,
Shutdowns for thee, but not for me.
and prior to some other lockdowns, Newsom sending his kids off to their private school, which weren't subject to the rules that he set for all the public schools in the state.
Yeah.
I mean, so I mean, the hits just keep on coming, and I really am baffled. Listen, I know a lot of people hate Donald Trump. A lot of people hate Republicans, and that's fine. I mean, you don't have to like Republicans. You don't have to like Donald Trump to all of a sudden start questioning people that are throwing stuff, their mandates at you and restrictions on you when they're not when they have no intentions of following them themselves. I can't.
Right. It's a lot easier to point and tell people that they can't do something when it's not going to impact your life as well. It's a lot different story when you have to follow those same mandates that you have tried to put in place.
Well, I mean, you're absolutely right. And the most recent one, the purple tear out in California. I mean, I'm sitting there reading that all amusement parks must remain closed. I don't see how the man in Sacramento has gotten away with this. I mean, I mean, the people at Disney, what? I mean, come on. I mean, isn't there a good old boy network out in California? Don't they have some muscle? I mean, don't they have some deep pocketbooks? Is things really that different out in California? If they tried to pull that stunt in Alabama, we just pay off the governor. What's going on out there? I don't get it. I mean, can you imagine some of those big businesses actually allowing this to happen? It's crazy.
Especially with how big of an industry that is out there. I mean, I don't know what the appropriate comparison would be to here in Alabama, but If we said we were just going
Vision
to shut
land.
down the Iron Bowl, no more Iron Bowl.
I think there's that roller coaster over there in Baldwin County outside of Foley. I think shut that down. I don't think anyone would notice too much. But I mean, but seriously, kind of getting back to the topic here. It's I mean, about the rule of law and going back to New York, and I've been reading these headlines, and I just really am baffled. I mean, baffled is just the best way to describe my reaction to Governors Cuomo, Murphy, Whitmer on how they think there's legal justification in order to shut down people like this, shut down gatherings, people 10 or more. And even if they could make some kind of legal argument for it, they could find some sort of judge that would be sensitive to their subject, which I'm certain they probably could. I don't see how they think that they could enforce it. All the people and all the households in New York, all the people and all the households in Michigan and in New Jersey. And so I if why do it? Why do it? Now, I mean, you can make the same argument saying, well, you got to do something or else people are going blah, blah, blah. It's the same thing previously with underage drinking laws or drinking age and marijuana laws and what have you. But even so, we all kind of knew the game there, and that didn't necessarily seem capricious, but this kind of does. And it scares me. It scares me for the future of the country, of future of a lot of different states, that they have been just kind of willingly, almost like sheep in a lot of ways, allowing this to happen and not questioning it to the degree that I think they should.
No, I mean, I 100% agree. It's because this isn't the end of pandemics, or this isn't the end
No.
of things that are going to start to put fear in people's eyes. I mean, this is we average close to 2 pandemics a decade, and obviously this is a pretty bad one. However, the point being, this isn't going away. COVID may somewhat go away, but pandemics as a whole, and even other sort of events, probably aren't going away. That would cause them to want to, do these capricious laws.
Well, I mean, without a doubt, the world is getting to be a smaller place. It was before all these various lockdowns. How many people were walking around on the planet? 7 billion, 8 billion, something like that?
Yeah.
It's scheduled to go up. The transportation's better now than it ever has been in human history. So to think that human beings aren't going to interact with one another or try to keep them from doing so, moving forward, I mean, you're right. We're going to see more pandemics. We're going to see more coronaviruses that we've never seen before. Lord knows how many of them there are out there currently. This one happens to be kind of nasty.
Well, just think where this virus started and how cool.
So I'm not going to be too political there. I mean, it's
allegedly started.
Allegedly, that's a word that's a cure for all evils. Allegedly.
No, but picture that the virus starting in the alleged same spot that it started this time, but 100 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it probably has the same spread or the same veracity that it had this time or this time around. And
well, I mean, there'd be people out there that would tell you, Sam, that perhaps the Spanish flu might have started in China.
Started in Kansas, didn't it?
Yeah, but everything starts in China. I mean, they got it from some Chinese. There's some people that came over to work from China. That's the story. That's what Donald Trump says. But all of that, I mean, but the world was made smaller with World War I. But I mean, but your point is very well taken. How many pandemics have there been in places like China and Asia and even Africa that we just don't know anything about here in the United States because the travel wasn't as great, the communication wasn't as great, and so they're relatively contained. Well, we're not going to have that same luxury to contain all these weird flus and viruses moving forward. So every time one of these comes down the pike, we're going to lock everything down again, print money we don't have and no way of getting back, and trying to being relatively arbitrary with what we're trying to do, and then understand that we have neither the capability nor the will to enforce our restrictions. We're just barking up a tree that's just doesn't make a lot of sense.
There's no good way out of it.
There's absolutely no good way out of it except to tell people to use some common sense Now, if I mean, I will tell you some of those pictures.
Yeah, I'll let you champion that.
Some of those pictures I saw from Orange Beach and Gulf Shores back in April suggested not a lot of people using common sense down on the Gulf. But even so, you have to let people assume some type of personal responsibility for their own actions. If you don't, you're just going to people are going to be running to the government, and the more power you give the government, the worse off it is for the average citizen. And I don't care who you are. I don't care what side of the aisle you are. The larger the government, the more problems it is for the average person. At least that's what history has suggested. You know, I mean, that's what it is.
And
So,
that's still something I think everybody in the United States has some complaint with how the government runs something.
yeah. So why do we want to give why do we
change?
Why do we want to give the government more power, particularly power over who we can have in our homes? How many people?
That's my point.
I mean, whether or not you wipe down your countertop or scrub your toilet when people were going in and out. It's a weird time in which we live. It's a weird time in which Americans are allowing this to happen, and we need to make sure that somehow this gets stopped, because it doesn't bode well for future economic activity. Again, going back to the 3 hallmarks, Sam, and I've told you this time and time again, all functioning economies have 3 primary characteristics: adherence to the rule of law, strong individual property rights, and the development of their human capital. Without those 3 things, you ain't got nothing. You got Cuba, you got North Korea. That's what you got. And so
Yep.
if we weaken the first one, and that's adherence to the rule of law, the other ones start weakening. You know, it's just a slippery slope, a domino effect, if you will. And by domino effect, I'm not talking about 2 pizzas for a nickel. You know, I'm talking about whatever McNamara was talking about back in the 60s. So Sam, I don't know if we're trading perspectives here. Seems like we're pretty much in agreement here. And maybe we need to get someone who was 12 years old from Maine or something like that, from a completely different section
Vermont.
of the country. Vermont, in order to come on here and trade perspectives with us. I mean, and what was interesting, remember our guest a few weeks ago, Jim Kunzler, you know, he's no friend of politicians telling him what to do. And well, his county, Washington County, is one of the ones where the sheriff has said, "We ain't doing what you're saying, Andrew," which I found pretty interesting. So Sam, I mean, I got to tell you, I'm not sure if we've solved anything here or even traded perspectives. However, if nothing else, I think it's fair to say that we are trying to get the message out there that we need to get back to the adherence of the rule of law. We can't have the relative capriciousness we're having here with shutting down institutions, with mandating who can be in your homes, how you scrub your countertops, whether or not, you know, Sam, whether or not I can chant at a normal talking level, which is one of the guidelines out in California. No kidding. And, you know, the more power we give politicians, the more power they'll take. So need all Americans to kind of push back on this type of stuff. Well, guys, thank y'all so much for listening. We always love to hear from you. Also, if you have any comments or questions, please let us know. You can always drop us a line at tradingperspectives@oakworthcapital.com, where you can leave us a review on the podcast outlet of your choice. If you're interested in hearing more, reading more of what we have to say or how we think, you can always check out our blog, Common Sense, underneath the Thought Leadership tab at oakworthcapital.com, and along with a lot of other good articles and commentary from everyone on our Thought Leadership team. Well, Sam, I'm going to give you a last shot to kind of shoot me down here today.
That is all I got today.
That's all I've got today, too. Y'all take care.